like to express, first of all, our fascination of your exposition, and to say some words concerning Russian Orthodox eschatological vision of the situation. What is important, that a perfect and very strange convergence of some crucial points. I have spoken recently with one saint father, Vladimir Tsvetkov. He is a monk and he is a chief of monastery who belongs to the tradition of the elders of the starets, Russian starets, and he was introduced in the Orthodox eschatology, Russian eschatology, and I have asked him to name the most important points of this eschatology. So, according to him, all the starets, all the elders of Russian Orthodox Church prophesied the spiritual renaissance, rebirth of Russian Christian tradition after the time of Bolshevist or Antichrist oppression. So what now we are witnessing of a fulfillment of the tradition that was made before Bolshevists, but they were more or less identified, their rule was foreseen, and the end of this rule was predicted. What should go next? Rebirth of Orthodox Church and the rebirth of Russia. At the same time, 2 points were after that, 3 points. The wars and with the great suffering of the Russia, and also the many challenges to Moscow and many damages that we will suffer. So very devastating wars waged against us in the future. After reconquest of the Constantinople, precisely that the elders of Russian Orthodox Church affirm that Russia will conquer Constantinople and free Hagia Sophia and restore it as Christian cathedral. But that will be in the animosity against Western Christianity that is recognized as a kind of fallen branch of our church. So it is all concerns only Orthodox Eastern Christian tradition. And the last thing, that was the great war against Israel and the reconquest of Constantinople. So there are not Muslims mentioned expressly, but that rebirth of Christendom in Russia, reconquest of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, and the war against Pax Judaica. And in all these predictions, the rule of the international Jewry was recognized as the sign of the end of the time and as the representation of the rule of the Antichrist. So there is perfect convergence with what you have said, and that is also quite opposite to what Salafi Muslims affirm, because they are for alliance with the West and against so-called Russian oppression against Muslim minority. So we have two global visions, not one Christians, the other Muslims, but two global visions, one Muslim Christian that you defend and we defend, and the other Muslim Christian vision that is defended by Westerners, the Zionists, and the Jews. So you have promptly pointed out that the idea of the Jews is not all of them.
No.
So, and that gives the possibility to regard the third monotheistic phase as double. So they are part of the Jews. They will be, I think that major part of the Jews will be on other
That's right.
side, but there will be a little part, maybe few of them on our side.
Right. That's right.
So it is a kind, what is important, that this line, eschatological line, divides not religions between themselves, but inside of three religions there are two contradictory eschatological positions. Two, only two in Islam, represented by Sheikh Imran Hussein, and by, I have spoken some days ago with President of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, personally, and he confirmed absolutely eschatological vision. The only difference in the vision of Imran Hussein and Ahmadinejad, the role of Mahdi played in this situation, because Imran Hussein stresses the point of the return of the Jesus, and the Iranian stress the point of return of Mahdi. That is difference. But geopolitically speaking, that is absolute convergency between Iranian eschatology and eschatology expressed by Sheikh Imran Hussein. There is the same difference, the dividing line in Christianity, Western and Eastern, and there is the same line, more deeper maybe and not so obvious, inside of Judaism. One part of Judaism that is Zionist, Pax Judaica, and the other that we could presume to be different. So I would like to thank you for your exposition, and maybe you could develop some point concerning this astonishing convergency of two forms of eschatological thought.
Happy to hear these great words from the Muslims' mouth. I'd like to say it's really, and we must talk about it. We must write about it. We must tell to our Russian people that this evil which is connected in our conscience with the Muslims is a great sin from the point of view of the Islam as it is, and this is a way to our future alliance. Вот. Ну вот, пожалуй, так сказать, я просто немножко пересказал, так сказать, для того, чтобы было ясно вот здесь сидящим, и высказал вот эту вот, так сказать, позицию, that it's very important. It's very important. At the same time, with your words about two Islamic views and two Christian views, and maybe to Judaic views, but this is another problem for our discussion that is more complicated problem. And, but what you said about two Christianities and two Islams is very important. But we have some between Orthodoxies, Russian Orthodoxies. We have different points of view on Constantinople. There is a point of view. The old believer point of view is that Constantinople is not so important for Russia because it is this history is past, and the problem of Constantinople was the one of the central problems of the Russian Raskolo, schisma of the 17th century. But from the point of view of the mainstream of Russian Orthodoxy, not the contemporary mainstream ecumenic and Judeo-Christian, but the conservative mainstream of Russian Orthodox Church. It's from some points of view another view to Constantinople, that Constantinople is a great dream of Russian people and Russian Tsars and Russian Church, and that is the restoration of the Second World. We must also think of this, but maybe historic events we have already the answer to our internal discussions between the Orthodoxes. Maybe our destiny wakes up, and maybe we'll go to Constantinople and not and ignore our internal discussion on this. Okay. Maybe you are right. That's all.
The questions or suggestions?
Yes. Dear Sheikh Hussein, thank you very much for this interesting lecture, especially about this set of geopolitical, religious, and political overviews. I have very practical questions about current tensions between the Shia community and Sunni community in Middle East, especially. What agencies behind this kind of tensions? Concretely, and maybe some metaphysical aspects of these tensions.
There is a part of the question I cannot answer. It would not be it's not a subject for public discussion. There's another part of the subject that I can answer, and that is that I think it's a master plan from a long, long time. The master plan has been that in Zaman, in the last age, to foment Shia-Sunni civil war. And that is what's being pursued now. If Shia-Sunni civil war takes place, number one, it'll make the world of Islam look like fools before the rest of mankind. Number two, it will dissipate the power and the morale of both the Shia and the Sunni, weaken both sides. Number three, we might even lose some of our friends who are willing to stand with us. The forces which are fomenting Shia Sunni warfare at this time are coming from that camp, the Western camp. And they're using their surrogates, the American Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the American state of Qatar, which should more properly be designated the Zionist state of Saudi Arabia. Many Saudis are very, very hurt about their government and their rulers. Many Saudis have become my students who are writing to me, many Saudis who are asking for my books. And they despise their rulers. So we should not lump the whole of Saudi Arabia in one basket. The rulers are one thing and the other people are another. The Qatar, the Amir of Qatar or the King of Qatar was unceremoniously dumped last week by those who actually rule over Qatar. And his cousin, his own cousin, is my student. She despises her cousin. And there are others in Qatar as well who despise the government. So they put in place governments who will be their clients and who will rule over the world of Islam on their behalf. But if they can make overtures to the world of Islam and try to build links with the world of Islam, which are so immoral and devious, and to their benefit, there's no reason why Russia should not also reach out to the world of Islam in a manner which has greater integrity, morality in it, and which will seek to reach the hearts of the people. Russia has an opportunity now, right now, to do more than extend military help to the regime in Syria. That's not enough. I think it's not enough. Bashar Assad might last for some time, but his time in history has come. I don't think he can survive because a new age has come. A new time has come with the Arab Spring. It happened 100 years ago with that first Arab Spring, and it's happening now again with this Arab Spring. But this one is aided and abetted by something called Twitter. I never met Twitter, but I understand he's somewhere called Twitter. And SMS, and television, and the internet and so on. And so transmission of information is so rapid and universal. The minds of the people are changing now, and the new age is coming to the Arab world. I would love to speak for a moment on Egypt if we have a chance later on. We need more than military assistance to save Syria from becoming another Libya, to save Syria from a Shia Sunni civil war. And that is a political initiative, and Russia is well placed to offer such a political initiative. When our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, left Mecca and migrated to Medina, he met a diverse society in Medina. There were many Jewish tribes, some of them who had been at war with each other. There were many Arab tribes, some of them at war with each other for generations. And then you had two communities of Muslims, one local and one had come from Mecca. What he did was to very wisely and patiently forge a consensus amongst all the units of a state that is to come into being, which would be a plural model of a state. There were no elections, thank God, and I hope I never have to ever vote in an election and disgrace myself and all those who came before me, because God did not create me as an individual to make an individual choice for the state. God created me as nations and tribes, not as individuals. He says so in the Quran. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا, nations and tribes. And so it was nations and tribes who became units of the state. And they spoke on the basis of mutual consultation within the tribe. And no amount of money from Washington and no amount of broadcast from Al Jazeera could corrupt the tribe, because they are tribal ethics. And the tribe has to pay deference to those who are the wisest in the tribe, those who are the custodians of the wisdom of the tribe. They spoke with greater authority than one man, one woman, one vote, that nonsense that came from there. And so he forged a plural model of a state, which recognized the political equality of all the units of the state. And so there came into being a constitution. The constitution was necessary because of the political diversity of the state. Had there been no diversity, had there been homogeneity, and you already had your own law, there was no need for a constitution. A constitution was necessary because of the diversity of the state. And the function of the constitution was to bring the people together, and this is what Ikhwan al-Muslimun couldn't get into their stupid head. And I choose my words with care, this stupid head. They brought a constitution to Egypt which divided Egypt as Egypt had never been divided before. And if today they're reaping what they foolishly sowed themselves. I don't think they'll ever see the sunshine again in Egypt. They had their chance and they lost it. The same thing can be done in Syria. And that is that you invite to Russia. Doesn't have to be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It could be a non-governmental body. You invite to Russia all those units of Russia, all those groups in Russia, in Syria, who are in opposition to oppression, in opposition to Zionism, in opposition to NATO, in opposition to what happened to Libya. And the purpose of coming together is to forge an agreement which would be mutually acceptable, which would recognize the rights of all parties and establish the political equality of all parties. And so the Shia would be there and the Sunni would be there, and the Christians would be there and the Druze would be there and the Kurds will be there. And when you forge that agreement of all agreeing to live together in harmony on a basis, of course, a power sharing agreement, then perhaps the Russian government can intervene and try to get a Bashar Assad who I'm sure will be happy. I'm sure he'll be happy to embrace such a solution, because all that he has at this time is the military option. That's all. And so you can save Syria from a pending Shia-Sunni civil war. Yeah, this is the role waiting for Russia.
I have a question.
Yeah.
From your opinion, Dajjal is a personal figure, historical, or some spiritual reality?
let the Prophet answer. The Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, described him as Al-Masih al-Dajjal, indicating that he is someone who would attempt to impersonate the Messiah. The Messiah is flesh and blood.
Yes. And
the Messiah is a human being.
yes.
Messiah ate food. So Dajjal, if he does not appear as a human being, no one will accept him as the Messiah. Yeah.
Yes. And what about such figure? What about such figures? What do you mean? The connection between Mahdi, the figure which the Orthodox starets, elders tradition call the last Tsar or last emperor, and a very obvious figure in European and especially Catholic, Roman Catholic eschatology, as which is called the Great Monarch. Very obvious figure, because a very ambiguous figure of the Great Monarch. And what's the connection between these three eschatological figures? The Islamic Mahdi, the Russian last Tsar, and the European, especially French, Great Monarch.
I have adopted a policy of restricting myself to attempting to explain only Islamic eschatology, and I have never encroached upon. Even when I know what the Christians say, I have not spoken on it, because I prefer that the Christian should himself explain his eschatology. And when we come together, I hope that we can forge a Judeo-Christian-Muslim dialogue, eschatological dialogue. Then all three would be able to present their eschatologies, and we'll be able to then see the similarities between each other. But I'm going to have to step back into history for a moment. That we do have in the Quran the figure of John the Baptist, and he is linked to Jesus. It is when we go to your sources, then we learn that when Jesus returned to Jerusalem as an adult, he went in front of John. And when John saw him, John said, "Here he is, this is the man you've been waiting for, this is the Messiah." The divine wisdom is at work in establishing positive identification through this method. It follows therefore that when the Messiah is to return, there should also be a repeat for positive identification. Our eschatology says that the Messiah is going to return in Damascus. Number one, the head of John the Baptist is buried in a masjid in Damascus, according to our sources, the Masjid al-Umawi in Damascus. But number two, he returns to Damascus because the Imam is there in Damascus. And when he comes down from the sky with his hands resting on the wings of two angels. No, I should not say the sky. The Quran speaks about 7 parallel universes, or samawat. beside the material universe. These 7 parallel universes are not spatially located one after the other. They are alongside each other, parallel. So you can step out of one and step into the other instantaneously. And so it is in the samawat, or the parallel universes, that he is located these last 2000 years. No, heaven is something else. And it is from the samawat, or the 7 parallel universes, that he comes down into our world of space and time, with his hands resting on the wings of 2 angels. When he comes down, the Mahdi would see him and say, here he is. This is the son of Mary. And history repeats itself. Positive identification. The Jewish scriptures speak about a second person beside Jesus, who is going to rule with Jesus. And I am going to be waiting with great anticipation to learn about the Christian eschatology from this part of the Christian world. Yes. The question is, what can Russia do now that Russia's moment in history has arrived, as no other moment ever before in Russian history? Russia has a dramatic role to play in the end time. What then should Russia do? I have mentioned the initiative for Syria already. I don't have to repeat it. The focus of attention at this time should be on forging the Muslim-Christian alliance, the alliance between Muslims and Rome. There are little things we can do. Like, for example, when this is broadcast and placed on the internet, and the world out there can see that Christians and Muslims are sitting together, engaged in an intelligent discourse with no hatred and animosity, no insults flying around the table. This has to be repeated, particularly with the representatives of the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church, dressed in their religious garbs. And this has a powerful effect when they view it on the internet. It is necessary for us to come together in inter-religious eschatological dialogue. The best scholars of the Eastern Christian Orthodox world, and eschatology cannot be handled only with the text of the Bible and the text of the Quran. You have to be able to also bring the scripture to work, to understand and interpret events unfolding in the world, political, economic, monetary, etc., military and so on. So when you have the best of the Christian world and the best of the Muslim world coming together in dialogue, in friendly dialogue, this will have an impact upon our 2 communities. There are simple things you can do at this time. For example, I go back to Malaysia, and the Malaysians are people who love their religion. And I say to them, you have a beautiful masjid in Shah Alam called the Blue Masjid. Magnificent structure. I want you to build that in Moscow. And within 1 or 2 nights, the money will be raised. From nowhere, the money will be raised. And then you get permission from the Russian authorities, okay? With the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church backing the project. And you build this lovely structure in Moscow to show friendship and to show love between Muslims and Christians. And then in that part of the Christian, in the Muslim world where Orthodox Christians live, you do the same thing. And Moscow raises the money and they build a beautiful cathedral in that part of the world. And in this way, you're going to be doing small things that can be done right away, quickly, without any great effort. Once the roadblocks can be removed. In order for the roadblocks to be removed, you need public education. You have to go out there in Moscow and you have to explain to them what you've understood and learned over here. These are some of the small steps that can be taken right away in order for Russia to exploit the opportunity which has now come its way.
We could start.
Just for sense of humor, I wanted to ask a simple question. What do you think about the unity and what's in between the appearance of Jesus Christ and Imam Mahdi at simultaneously arriving? At this time, all believers they will be unified. So it doesn't mean if a Muslim enters a church to pray or a Christian enters a mosque to pray. I think the problem of Hagia Sophia, it won't be a problem for all because it will be for all believers as a whole.
When Jesus, the son of Mary, Allah's blessings be upon them both, returns, every Muslim is obliged on the basis of his religious beliefs to obey him and to follow him. I can't speak for the Christian, they will have to speak for themselves. But for Islam, we will have an absolute duty to obey him and to follow him.
Upon his book. To obey him upon his book, upon his beliefs.
I think it is sufficient at this time to restrict myself to saying that every Muslim will have an obligation to obey him and to follow him, to assist him. It is not for us to speak for the Christians. They will speak about their relationship with him when he returns. We can only anticipate that the Christian view will be the same as the Muslim view. Yeah. But we must be careful not to tread in territory which does not belong to us. So I have always restricted myself in my eschatology to Islamic eschatology. I wrote a book on Gog and Magog. There's a lot of material in Christian eschatology on Gog and Magog. I looked at it, but I have not used anything at all from Christian eschatology in my book. I prefer that the Christians write their book on Gog and Magog, okay, rather than me attempting to interpret their book. And then the two books can come together and you can compare them. Yeah.
It's a very wise attitude to be restricted to our proper religions without making a kind of confusion between two theological approaches. Еще есть?
Of darker organizations, of this organization, Sufi organization, to participate in the end time more closely.
Okay. I regret that the name Sufism, Tasawwuf, was ever invented, because I don't need it. The Messenger of Allah, Allah's blessings be upon him, gave us a term, Al-Ihsan. And when he was asked what is Al-Ihsan, he said that it is to worship God as though you're seeing him. But in the Quran, when Moses said to God, Arini anzur ilayk, show me yourself, I want to see you. The God Most High replied and he said, "Lan tarani," not possible, not with these eyes. You can't see me. And then the Prophet was asked that on Judgment Day, would we, the ones who follow the religion, would we be able to see the Lord Most High? And then he answered and asked rhetorically, "Do you have any difficulty in seeing the sun at midday?" They said, "No." And then he asked, "Do you have any difficulty in seeing the moon when it is a full moon?" They said, "No." He said, "That's how you're going to see your Lord." The Quran said you cannot see him. The Prophet said you will see him the way you see the sun and the moon. Are they in conflict with each other? No. When the Quran said you cannot see him, with these eyes you can't see him. When the Prophet said you will see him, not with these eyes. This is epistemology. That in addition to knowledge which is externally derived, knowledge is also internally received. And this is what the Salafis cannot accept. This is Sufism. This is Tasawwuf. To be able to see what otherwise cannot be seen. And if you walk into any Christian Orthodox cathedral in Russia today, you'll probably see it on the wall as well. That you had people in Russia once upon a time who could see what others could not see. So you're not unfamiliar in Russia with the subject. This is Sufism, this is Tasawwuf. To see not only externally but internally, and to have both oceans of knowledge harmoniously integrated with each other. And then you apply that to the understanding of events unfolding in the world. If there were really Sufis in Turkey, if these were Sufis in Turkey who could see what otherwise could not be seen, would Turkey still be in NATO? Would Turkey still be using this bogus, fraudulent and utterly haram paper money?
This is Russian paper money.
They have it in Turkey as well. A couple of years ago it was 1.something million lira to 1 USD. Around the world today, this bogus, fraudulent and utterly haram paper, plastic and electronic money passes for money. If we had eyes and we could see, we'd be waging a struggle to extricate ourselves from this. And tomorrow Russia would make gold and silver coins legal tender. Tomorrow Russia would make gold and silver coins legal tender. What about the Shia, if that's the Sufi? 34 years after an Islamic revolution, and after 34 years, Shia Iran is still using this bogus and fraudulent and utterly haram paper money. And when you go to speak with the scholars of Islam in Iran, they don't even know the ABC of the origins of paper money. They've not ever studied the subject. And yet, we are told this is authentic Islam. So the term Sufi, I think, should be banished. And we should look again to see and judge our people based upon how accurate they are in being able to see what otherwise